Hey everybody, just wanted to do a little video recording for you on some current events. I've received a lot of telephone calls, emails, text messages, Facebook messages, etc., asking have I seen Dana Coverstone and his three dreams that he has been posting about and putting up on YouTube. I also know that one of our ministries is doing an interview with him coming up real soon. uh, I just wanted, because there's so much interest in what he has to say and about his dreams, I wanted to just provide you a response all at one time instead of everybody having to kind of individually call as you've been doing on how we feel about his dreams. And so here's my take on it. You can take this as my opinion and my feeling. It's not necessarily the official position of Patria as much as it is just my discernment and what stirred in me when I watched Dana's videos. First of all, let me say I don't know Dana, but in watching his videos, to me, he seems extremely sincere, as humble as you can be, trying to convey something like what he's doing, and very interested in helping the body of Christ with what he is conveying. Secondly, let me say that based on my discernment and the sincerity of his presentation, I have no questions whatsoever on his integrity or his intentions, nor do I have any question that he had these dreams as and when he said he did. I say those things in advance because I do have some concerns about his interpretation and his application. Most of you know that John Paul Jackson, who taught many of us within Patria about dreams, uh, took a position. There were four parts to dream interpretation. There was the revelation, hearing from God, the interpretation, discovering what the dream meant, the application, how did you use what you learned it meant, and then the proclamation, which is the declaration of what the dream is about or telling it to others. So for me, there's a little bit of a feel that Dana may have gone from from revelation into interpretation, and then without fully walking out the process of interpretation and application, jumped over to proclamation. Nothing negative, again, just my perspective. And I want to tell you the reasons I feel that way so that you understand I'm not being critical of Dana. Again, I don't know him well enough to be, and nothing I've seen indicates that I should be in any fashion, even corrective or warning in some way. The sincerity there is very, very evident. So here's my concerns. My concerns are that the presentation, at least the initial video that I've seen, I've heard some people say there may be some additional videos now. I haven't seen anything but the initial presentation, and that's what seems to be being reposted and passed around. The initial presentation left me with a feeling of hopelessness and despair. It also promoted some level of fear and the need to take action in a natural sense to respond to the warning uh, that was being declared. For me, I see these dreams, the second two dreams, in listening to the portion that we've been provided in his videos of the actual dream themselves. I see these dreams as metaphorical and not necessarily as literal. I believe, I have no reason to disbelieve him that his first dream came literally to pass. That does not mean the second and third dream are literal. It means God is getting his attention and is very determined that he recognizes and takes serious the next two dreams. Some of the elements of the second two dreams are very clearly metaphorical. The opening up the top of the banks and the money being like vacuumed out is a metaphor. That's not the way somebody's going to get into the bank. It's speaking of economic crisis. That leads me to believe that the level of assault he sees on the nation is also metaphorical and is speaking predominantly of the spirit behind all that is going on and the fact that the intensity of the spiritual assault as it will then be manifest in the natural, is going to reach a crescendo later this year. Now, what does that call me to? Does that call me to, and this is again one of my concerns about application, does that call me to stock up on all the guns and ammunition I can find and all the food I can find? Or does that call me to pray? And I believe that this is a dream that is a warning dream, these two dreams are warning dreams that are intently calling the body of Christ to prayer. That should be our response. Not fear, not anxiety, not stress, not worry, not hopelessness, not despair, but calling us to pray. I think that the significance of these dreams and the sharing the message of the dreams is for that purpose, and it is very significant that the message be shared in order to spread that call to prayer. On the other hand, I myself would not repost his videos because I feel they present the message in a way that does not convey the heart of who Patria is and how we understand dream interpretation and application. Let me sort of that's my general thought on it. So I have nothing against Dana. I'm not speaking against Dana. Believe in his sincerity, believe in his integrity. From the best I can tell, not knowing him, believe in the message, the true message of these dreams as being significant and needing to be shared. Concerned, not frustrated, not upset, not thinking something's terrible or something like that. Concerned about the presentation and looking to see it expressed in a different light. Hopefully, in his future interviews and videos and things of that nature, that will be adjusted as maturity comes to the carrying of the weight of this message. So let me back up my bottom line is, I believe it's a call to prayer. I believe it's serious. I believe it's intense. I do not believe we need to be in desperation. I believe we need to respond with sincere and focused prayer, that this is a clear call for that, and it is our response. Let me back that up now with a couple of thoughts. Why, if we respond to a dream such as this in natural fashion, to get ready for natural issues, we are kind of doing it in our own power in many ways. And many times we take it into our own hands, and I don't think we create a lot of change. So if we respond in natural ways and the dream is literal and there are natural things that we need to be prepared for at the level he speaks of, then I don't think we affect change. I think we have despair. If we respond in a spiritual way and the dream is literal and there's natural things that are really going to happen that we have to be prepared for, and they really are sort of this desperate, the nation ends as we know it, which is the impression we're left with, then responding in a spiritual way to it prepares us for that time and that season. If the dream is metaphorical and we respond in a natural way, stocking up on guns and ammunition, food, etc., and moving in fear and things, we can actually bring into existence more of the natural result than what would have occurred, because we will not be helpful responding that way. If the dream is metaphorical and we respond in a spiritual way, prayer and intense transformation in the way we approach our role as Christians, then we will have great impact, massive impact on the world around us in the days ahead. So those are the reasons I choose to look at this in the way that I do and without despair. If I respond and it is a literal occurrence that is prophetically being declared will come to pass, if that is the case, my spiritual response to it is the best response I can make without going into fear and despair. And that's how I feel very strongly about that. Now, there are a couple things in the dream and the way it's presented that leave me with the concerns that I have to say, let's be careful with the interpretation and the presentation and let God draw us into a spiritual response. Those things happen to have to do with some of his presentation. Again, I'm not being critical of him, but it is for the prophetic community to evaluate other prophetic statements. And so I want to evaluate this. First of all, his dream lays forth two very key points in the way I hear it that are repetitive, maybe even three, that are repetitive of things others have said or things that are already known to be happening. So I don't see them as prophetically speaking as much as metaphorical for this reason. Number one, his description of what can be taken to look like civil war has been prophesied by Rick Joyner. Rick's prophecy and his statements about it leave some hope and point to some responses. I have to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of how Rick has presented his view of potential civil war in the United States either, but it has been presented and proclaimed prophetically already and was known prior to these dreams. Second thing is the indicator in his dream of coin shortage. If I remember right, his dream occurs on June 24th or right about that time. Well prior to June 44th, it was already an established fact in the United States that there is a coin shortage. I was aware of it at least 2 weeks prior to June 24th and had already researched it to confirm that it was real. That was all based on natural knowledge, signs going up at stores, and me wanting to check out, were they honest or were they falling into a urban legend? And found that we are having a coin shortage because most people are shopping online using credit cards. People aren't putting coins back into circulation, and the mint can't print enough coins right now to catch it back up because they have people out of work for social distancing. Wow, what do you think? Anyway, so those two things were already in existence. Therefore, to me, I do not see those as clearly direct prophetic statements of a future event that is going to come to pass or that has not already been revealed in some way. So I see them as metaphorical, personally. Second thing, that the third potential thing that I see there is the UN, Russian, and Chinese soldiers in the street. Let me just say, I don't mean this badly. Dana, if you see this video, I don't mean this badly at all, but there's a little bit of cliche in there. There's a Red Dawn-esque statement there. I don't dispute whatsoever that you saw it in the dream, but it leads me to believe with the sort of cliche or colloquial perspective there that is metaphorical and not literal. Again, I'm not challenging what Dana's seen. I'm not challenging even his interpretation in the sense of he views it more literally, whereas I'm seeing it more metaphorically. And I think that we can reconcile those two positions really well in that if we don't take this serious in a spiritual way, you could see the literal interpretation come to pass. If we look at it metaphorically and respond with a true, genuine spiritual response, we can see it being a Jonah type of thing. And I would say to Dana, if he ever does see this, don't feel the need, if none of this comes to pass in November, December, don't feel the need to say you blew it and you missed it completely. This is very likely a Jonah style of prophetic declaration. It's again why I have no issue with the way it's presented as much as I have with clarifying for us in the way it's presented, how do we respond to it? That's what's essential with this. I think we also see one last piece that concerns me in presentation, and that has to do with application. The advice, brace yourself. I don't see brace yourself as being there's nothing you can do. I see brace yourself as in gird up your loins, go to battle, set yourself face forward and pray and respond and change the way you display Christ in the earth so that he can be revealed more fully and completely. I see that as brace yourself. And finally, the idea of application, that we should get guns, ammunition, and food, have those things stockpiled. Most of you know when John Paul brought his word on the coming perfect storm, there were multiple questions. And if you weren't in any of the sessions where they were asked, I don't recall how many times he recorded this response, but I sat with him and talked to him and asked him about, should we store up food? Should we store up guns? Should we store up ammunition? Those very questions. And I want you to hear these words that he spoke and that I would echo. I do not challenge that you should respond in the way of storing guns, ammunition, and food. If that's what God calls you to do, store it up. No problem. I'm not challenging it. However, if you store it up to preserve and protect yourself alone, then there is an issue. John Paul's direct response to me was, Michael, if you're storing food in Alabama and the perfect storm does not strike Alabama with a shortage of food, but in Mississippi, they have a shortage of food, and you keep all your food, you have become part of the problem. You need to trust the Lord enough to be able to take what you have stored and recognize it is a resource. And you may be able to sow into the lives of others with it, not simply protect and preserve yourself. So that I want to keep that in mind with this. With those things said, I do think that revelation like this can take the form of things like Pharaoh and Joseph and the dreams there. If you understand the dreams released a coming catastrophe that could be avoided in large part, not fully, by a proper spiritual combined with natural response. The wisdom of Joseph and the acceptance of the wisdom of God being brought into the government of Egypt and the natural responses of preparation resulted not only in the kingdom of Egypt being saved from the disaster, but in the whole world being saved, and in the midst of it, the kingdom, interesting metaphor here, the kingdom of Egypt / God, prospering in that time and actually advancing its position of authority during that crisis. This is what I see in Dana's dreams. I want it to be an encouragement to you. I want them to be a call to action, spiritual action for you. But I want to intensely say to you, do not allow them to become a source of fear, desperation, anxiety, or worry. These dreams call us to pray, call us to respond spiritually, call us to prepare in some ways naturally, and become the Josephs of the earth now so that the kingdom will prosper and grow in the midst of crisis. That's my thoughts. Feel free to disagree, feel free to see it differently, but know that my heart is coming in love, and I'm very appreciative, and I'll say this again in case he ever does see it, I'm very appreciative of Dana's boldness in starting this discussion and conversation, because that's how the kingdom grows. Thanks. Bless you.